Welcome to Easy Stories in English, the podcast that will take your English from okay to good and from good to great. I am Ariel Goodbody, your host for this show. Today's beginner level story is called The Freezer Door. I'll just explain some words that are in today's story. Freeze, F-R-E-E-Z-E, and the past tense is froze, F-R-O-Z-E, is what happens when something gets very cold. When water gets very cold, it freezes and becomes ice. If a river or lake freezes, you can walk on it. If the weather is very cold outside, you can say, "Oh, it's freezing." If you are moving and then you suddenly stop, you freeze. For example, when the police want to catch someone, they say, "Freeze! It's the police!" In your kitchen, you might have a freezer, F-R-E-E-Z-E-R. Freezers are big white boxes that you put food in. Freezers are colder than a fridge, so when you put food inside a freezer, it freezes. For example, you can put ice in a freezer, ice cream, frozen vegetables, and so on. It is very common to have frozen peas and frozen carrots in your freezer, for example, because you can keep them for a long time. Your cheeks are the parts of your face between your mouth and your ears. In some European cultures, people kiss each other on the cheek to say hello. In some places, you kiss people on the cheek multiple times, and you change cheek each time. This can get confusing. In some parts of France, people kiss 3 times on the cheek. In some parts, they kiss 4 times, and there are even places where you kiss people 5 times on the cheek to say hello. To pick at means to pull small pieces off something. For example, if you have a plate of food in front of you, but you're not hungry, you might pick at it. You would only eat small bits of food. Some people pick at their skin when they get anxious. They pull off bits of skin until it goes red. When picking at your skin becomes a serious health problem, it's called dermatillomania. Kid, K-I-D, is an informal word for child. A phrase that old people often say is, "Kids these days." To be honest, in everyday life, we usually say "my kids" instead of "my children," for example. A nightmare, N-I-G-H-T-M-A-R-E, is a bad dream. If a nightmare is really scary, you might wake up from it. If you're having a really bad nightmare, it can feel better to wake up. Gooseberries, Gooseberies, are a type of fruit. Gooseberries are small green berries that have little hairs on them. Gooseberries are very sour, so people usually make jam with them and they add lots of sugar. There is also a popular dessert called gooseberry fool, which is a bit like a yogurt or a mousse. By the sea, there are sometimes very high rocks, and these are called cliffs. If you fall off a cliff, you will fall a very long way. Not all cliffs are above the sea. Mountains often have many cliffs. There are famous chalk cliffs in England called the White Cliffs of Dover. Sober, S-O-B-E-R, means not drunk. When someone is drunk and does things to become sober, they sober up. For example, you might drink water and eat food with lots of carbohydrates to sober up. If someone drinks alcohol all the time and it causes problems in their life, then they are an alcoholic. If an alcoholic says, "I've sobered up," it usually means that they have stopped drinking completely. There is an organization called Alcoholics Anonymous, which helps alcoholics stop drinking and sober up. Alcoholics Anonymous is often shortened to AA. So when someone talks about going to an AA meeting, this is probably what they are talking about. When you weigh something, WEIGH, you see how heavy or light it is. For example, you might weigh your suitcase. If your suitcase weighs less than 20 kilograms, you can take it on the plane, but if it weighs more, you can't. When you weigh something up, you consider the advantages and disadvantages of something. For example, maybe you're trying to decide whether to go on holiday to London or Berlin. You weigh up the advantages and disadvantages of each. Maybe you decide that London has great history, but Berlin has a great nightlife, and that these are the two priorities for you. So you have to weigh London's history against Berlin's nightlife. You compare the two to make this difficult decision. Although, of course, I would say you should come to London because I love London. So, a big theme in today's story is parallel universes. Parallel is when two lines run next to each other, but they never meet. They never touch. So parallel universes is the idea that there are different universes, different worlds, where everything is the same except for a few small things. There are many films about travelling through parallel universes, where the characters can see what would happen if they had made a different decision. For example, the film Everything Everywhere All at Once is about parallel universes. Parallel universes are sometimes called mirror worlds. In this story, I call them mirror worlds. They are like the world, and the reflection of the world is in the mirror. But of course, at least one thing is different, which I guess means it's not really a mirror and a reflection, because a reflection is exactly the same. Maybe the mirror is dirty, and that's why it's not a perfect reflection. Anyway, enough about that. Listen and enjoy. The freezer door. I was sad. I was strong and I was clever, and I had a good job, and I loved my husband and my children loved me. But I was sad. I thought I was happy. I must be happy, I thought, because sad people don't wake up and kiss their husbands on the cheek. Sad people don't bake fresh bread and bring toast to their children in bed. Sad people don't go for a run and have an ice-cold shower before work. I wasn't happy, of course. Happy people don't pick at their cheeks until they go red. Happy people don't say, "I'm not hungry," and watch their kids eat supper. Happy people don't read books until 4 a.m. and then have nightmares. But life continued. I counted the days. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I counted the months. April, May, June, July. I counted the years. Of course, there was no end. I didn't want an end. I was afraid of an end. When my husband said, "When the kids grow up and leave home," I felt as cold as ice, and I wanted to say no. Then, one day, I opened the freezer door. It was a hot summer's day. I was getting ice cream for the kids, gooseberry ice cream that I had made. But when I opened the freezer door, I did not see frozen carrots and gooseberry ice cream. I saw my kitchen. The freezer was like a mirror, but inside the freezer, the kitchen was empty. I could not see myself in that kitchen. I could not see myself in that world. "Mum!" called my daughter from outside. I froze. I loved my children. I would close this door and open it again, and then the strange mirror kitchen would be gone, and I would see the frozen carrots and gooseberry ice cream, and everything would be normal. I started to close the door. "Mom!" called my son. My hand stopped. I looked behind me. I saw my children for a second. I saw the love in their eyes. Then I climbed into the freezer and shut the door. "I'm sorry," I said, but my words were eaten by the ice. See you soon!